Written by Liang Gu, author of Crazy Waves, It is Difficult to Draw with Bones. Reprinted from Tianya Link. https://tiania.it/thread/0/10263226/1.html. Introduction. This is a legendary story of overcoming dangers, breaking through secret realms, and bravely fighting monsters and gods to find gold and treasure. It is also a passionate epic of making achievements, turning the tide, and defeating evil organizations. The various reasons for this have yet to be explained from the beginning. As a scumbag who never paid attention to in-class knowledge, I basically did everything a good student shouldn't do when I was a student. In other words, when I was in school, I did nothing but study. Everything can be done. At that time, I was very young and full of brotherly loyalty. For my buddies and girls, the most common thing I did was fight. From single combat to group fights, from barehanded to armed, before I graduated from high school, I was already capable of fighting. He is said to be experienced in hundreds of battles. My parents couldn't discipline me, so they finally chose to let me enter the melting pot of the military to receive training. After a few years of service, I might have the opportunity to become a useful person to society, at least not a social idler. If you think that the story I am going to tell you next is a routine about how a prick-headed student grew up in the army and eventually became a military king, then you are totally wrong. The reason why it is not so cliché is also very simple. It's because I had too many fights when I was in school. There are more than a dozen large and small scars left on my head, back, and chest. During the physical examination before joining the army, I was brushed off in the first round, and I will never have a chance to serve in the military. Since then, I have become a professional gangster. When I have nothing to do, I continue my previous activities with a bunch of friends who might risk my life just for a few words that don't go my way. Until one day, on an afternoon like any other, I was spending time in an internet cafe. A friend sent me a short article with pictures on a chat software. The content of the short article was very simple. It was a recruitment message from the French Foreign Legion. This message was translated into 6 languages and distributed on a large scale in different countries. It is hoped that it can provide fresh blood for the French army, which is increasingly difficult to recruit. In order to make this revelation more attractive, it naturally focuses on describing how high the salary and benefits of the Foreign Legion are, and how they can be stationed and deployed all over the world. How glamorous life on a mission can be is carefully described in romanticized terms, and then paired with a few imposing pictures that I later learned were staged as visual gags. After sending this short article, my friend half-jokingly asked me if I would be interested in signing up together according to the contact information at the end of the short article. I thought that I really could not live my life in this way. So if you can apply for the job successfully, it might be a turning point in your life. Facts have proved that this is indeed a turning point in life. From here on, my life has completely embarked on a path that I never dared to imagine before. With this idea in mind, my friend and I followed the above requirements. After filling out all the nationality, gender, height, weight, blood type and other indicators and leaving our contact information, we sent it to the email address where we left it. According to the instructions in the short article, regardless of whether it can be obtained or not. You will receive the information within 3 days. I didn't take this seriously at first. I just filled it out casually, sent it out and then forgot about it. But 3 days later, my phone rang from an unknown number. After picking up the phone, a brief conversation told me that my basic information had been passed in the audition. The friend who signed up with me also passed the audition and also received a notification phone call. When we contacted him again, we discussed it. We decided to give it a try. Our idea at the time was very simple. Since we had passed the audition, wouldn't it be a pity not to continue? After all, when you are young, you are still simple-minded, and there are sinister things like whether the other party is a smuggler who engages in human trafficking. I didn't even think about it at the time. But an idea is an idea after all. The physical location of the Foreign Legion's recruitment is thousands of miles away in the French city of Marseille. To put it harshly, my friend and I are just two scoundrels, and they still have the kind of disposable balance. We are poor people who rarely have more than 100 yuan. For this cross-border or even cross-continental registration, the travel expenses are the biggest obstacle in front of us. Facing this obstacle, we too have been professional gangsters for many years. For the first time, I found a relatively serious job. I found a hard job in the job market, moving people and unloading goods. After all, we didn't know how to do anything else, and this job was within the scope of what we were able to do at the time. Zhong is the one who makes the most money. When we worked the most, we could each earn 600 to 700 yuan per day. Although we were exhausted, we also had a sense of fulfillment that we had never experienced before. We often fight and kill together. After asking the reason why we were so desperate, our friends all laughed that we must have broken our heads during the fight. Later, the two of us were able to save enough travel expenses before the effective date of the recruitment notice came. Then he traveled through various modes of transportation and arrived in Marseille, France, in a way that was almost like escape. At the same time, he also found the recruitment location, the French non-commissioned officer wearing a dark green beret who was responsible for registering recruitment information. Seeing that our image was not much better than that of refugees, we both laughed, and then registered our basic information in the register. Fortunately, there were several translators present who were proficient in different languages to deal with soldiers from different countries. Among them are those who are proficient in Chinese. Without this level of translation, we would not be able to get through this level of communication. After a simple physical examination, we both successfully passed the test again. The French Foreign Legion's physical requirements for its soldiers are much more relaxed than those of our army. My friend, who has scars all over his body and has 3 tattoos, is not a big deal here at all. Seeing all kinds of strange looks on these people of different skin colors, it is simply dwarfing the big picture. During this period, we each called our parents in China and lied to them, telling them that we had found a job laying cables in the West. The salary was very high, but we wouldn't be able to go back for a while, so we told them not to worry. As we have never given our parents any worries since we were young, our parents didn't ask any more questions. They just said that we must be careful when going out, and then hung up the phone. But after the body side has passed, the first difficulty really appears. That's the language barrier I just mentioned. If you want to stay in the French Foreign Legion, no matter where you come from or what your mother tongue was, you have to speak French when you get here. In school, we had to rely on both of us to learn English. Here I actually used unprecedented energy to learn French, which is more difficult than English, and in the next 3 months, I was able to speak basic conversational French very well. Although this level is similar to the feeling of a foreigner who has just learned Chinese speaking Chinese. The two items after the language test are physical fitness and cultural skills. We both passed the former smoothly, in order to gain the upper hand in street fights in the early years. The advantage and hard training in physical fitness can still withstand it. As for the cultural level, it is actually not difficult, just get a French review material. Just read and memorize some of the glorious history about France and the French Foreign Legion and then write it down in the exam. This kind of rote memorization and not much content in the exam is for those of us who have passed the language barrier. That's no big deal. With all 3 passes passed, on this day, my friend and I put on the 3-color camouflage without military rank, and became a recruit who is still in the recruit company stage in domestic parlance. After this, what greeted us was real military training. As a military department open to recruitment from all over the world, the biggest feature of the Foreign Legion is naturally that there are people of different skin colors, different races, and different countries in the same place. The same department serves together, and this environment provides a breeding ground for conflicts between people. Asians with yellow skin and black hair can only do one thing if they want to get the respect of white people and black people here, and that is, be strong enough. If the team is beaten up by a group of comrades due to low training level and is holding back the team, then the French instructor of the recruit company will pretend to be invisible unless someone is killed. At the same time, who can get the more delicious food? Who can grab the lower berth among the upper and lower berths? Who can find a good seat in the bathroom? And many other trivial matters that involve personal interests and even dignity, all of which require struggle, otherwise you will be like a dog. Still alive. But I'm not afraid. For me, this kind of fistfight is just returning to my old business. That's the meaning of the saying, they want to push me into the abyss, but that's where I come from. My friend has a similar experience to me, so it doesn't matter, and we are more united in a foreign country than at home. His business is my business, and my business is his business. In a group of ferocious people, middle. Only fists are the only universal truth. Advancing and retreating at the same time, we have fought many big battles, of victory with less, that the instructors applauded. Because of this, those white people who once looked down upon us gave us the nickname. They are nicknamed China's two evils, and are given a wide berth. But there are also instructors who have serious discrimination and hostility towards yellow people, or the Chinese. For example, our physical fitness instructor is responsible for training the physical fitness of soldiers. Quality. In order to make us suffer more, the amount of training he arranged for us every time must be at least 30 times higher than that of other people. He tried to crush me with ultra-high-intensity training, but I let him down. Not only did I not get trained down. On the contrary, after the initial fatigue, I gradually adapted to this intensity, and under such targeted training, I was finally able to carry a weight of 25 kilograms and complete a 10-kilometer armed cross-country in 44 minutes and 39 seconds on mountainous conditions. This achievement was the highest record among the recruit companies of the Foreign Legion from the year I achieved it until I left the Foreign Legion. On top of that, I can even walk a 1-kilometer duck walk carrying a 35-kilogram single log. My fighting skills were also ranked first in the company, and my training results made this physical instructor who despised yellow people and Asians speechless in the end, and gave me a thumbs up on the day I was assigned. My fighting skills were also ranked first in the company, and my training results made this physical instructor who despised yellow people and Asians speechless in the end, and gave me a thumbs up on the day I was assigned. After completing the 1-year comprehensive basic training, my friends and I were assigned to 2 different units. With my better military quality, I was assigned to the foreign military unit known as the Blade of the Foreign Legion. The second group. This is the famous Parachute Regiment. It is the only unit in the entire Foreign Corps that has the capabilities of airborne combat and rapid aerial response. It has the strongest combat effectiveness, the best equipment, and the highest treatment, but it also has the highest elimination rate and risk factor. My friend was assigned to the relatively low-ranking 3rd Foreign Regiment, which was an infantry regiment. Since then, I have started a 9-year service career in the Foreign Legion. What I said before was not accurate because I had no chance to get here due to the military. It should be said that I was like this at home, but I didn't expect to become a soldier abroad. The day I accepted the official military rank and picked up the FAMA's 5.56mm automatic rifle with an exclusive number happened to be my 19th birthday. Think about it at that time. A year ago. At the age of 19, I was beaten up by several white men over 25 years old, tall and with many criminal records, for a piece of tacos. My face was covered in blood, but I showed no fear. I don't know what force made a 19-year-old boy leave his hometown and overcome these difficulties. If I had to give a reason, I think it would be fate. To be continued. 1. The fatal Luo Nan. 1. Attack on Mali. In my 8th year of service in the Foreign Legion, my paratrooper regiment was deployed to Mali, a landlocked country in West Africa that has been classified as the least developed country in the world by the United Nations. 1. Since it became a French colony in 1995, it has been plagued by war, famine, and plague until today. Although the African independence movement launched in the 1950s allowed Mali to shed its colonial status and become an independent country, after the war, France in order to maintain its international influence and presence. There were many attempts to intervene in the internal affairs of French colonial countries, and the Mali government was very happy to see such intervention in order to deal with the increasingly rampant extremist armed organizations in the country despite its weak national strength, and it is against this background that I came here. With 9 years of military service and long-term garrison experience in war-torn areas, I have basically completed all the French Army's military training related to frontline combatants. I mainly serve as an assaulter and a sniper, and the specific role depends on the needs of the situation. I have already obtained all the highest level skill certificates in this profession, and I have also participated in several anti-terrorist operations jointly conducted by multinational special operations forces. My friend who was assigned to the infantry regiment received bad news in my 5th year of service. He was attacked by a grenade from militants during a patrol, and a shrapnel penetrated the gap in his body armor. The skin and flesh are directly drilled and nailed to the spine. This serious injury almost made his lower body permanently paraplegic, but even if he did not end up spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair, it greatly affected his physiological functions, causing him to have to end his service in the Foreign Legion early. Finally, after receiving a relatively considerable amount of retirement pay, he returned to China and started a small business. At the same time, he is still doing rehabilitation training on his waist and legs. After learning that his life was not in danger, I was actually quite happy for him. Because in this way, at least I can leave this dangerous situation and return to my country to live a comfortable life, unlike me who has to continue to persevere. Although the desertion rate in the Foreign Legion is very high, especially the British and Americans. But this is not the Chinese way. On a day that was destined to change the trajectory of my life, I took a ride on a Panhard VBL. A 4x4 light-wheeled armored vehicle and 3 other armored vehicles of the same type carried out armed patrols in the most dangerous areas in the area. The so-called armed patrols are a deterrent to local extremist armed organizations. Of course. The premise that deterrence can be effective is that the other party is really afraid of you, but if not, then this kind of action is very likely to become a sheep in the tiger's mouth act of sending death, such as this time. Just as the motorcade began to pass through a village here. The two comrades in the carriage were discussing with great anticipation that our paratrooper regiment was going to invite the famous Crazy Horse dance troupe to join the army. Half of their bodies were exposed on the top of the armored vehicle and they were operating an M212. The machine gunner on guard with the 7mm heavy machine gun suddenly shouted in the earphone, "Bazooka!" After the words fell, what followed was the slow and heavy sound of dong 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 from the M2 heavy machine gun. However, this sound didn't last more than 10 times, and I felt my eyes light up. A streak of yellow-white fire penetrated my armor from the diagonal side, and then hit the person who was saying, "Crazy Horse," straight away. On the chest of the comrades in the dance troupe. This blow easily penetrated his body armor, then created a hole in his chest that could fit an adult's fist into, and also penetrated the armor plate behind him. The location has revealed a charred hole. Through the hole, you can see the dust flying in the sky outside, as well as the hole on his back. I immediately realized that it was a rocket attack. The yellow-white fire just now and even the metal jet produced by the concentrated energy warhead after the collision with the armor. This jet with a temperature of more than 9,000 degrees Celsius can easily soften and penetrate homogeneous armor, and the Panhard VBL. The armored vehicle is a typical light armored vehicle. Even if the opponent uses an old-fashioned rocket launcher like the RPG-7, the former's armor, which can only withstand medium-caliber machine gun bullets, is completely vulnerable. The comrade who was punched in the chest. Then he vomited a few mouthfuls of blood, fell forward, and died on the spot. Before I could react, the second rocket arrived. This time it was fired slightly higher, and it was clearly aimed at the machine gunner. The same metal jet easily penetrated the armor plate in an instant, and then hit the standing machine gunner's knees from the side. As for me, who was sitting now, I could see my lower body in the car when I tilted my head. Machine gunner. I watched helplessly as his legs were separated from his thighs on the spot by a metal jet. Both of his calves were completely broken. Without the support of his calves, the machine gunner's body fell down and fell back into the car. What followed was his heart-rending screams and the blood that flowed all over the car. The interval between the two rocket launches was too short, and we didn't react at first until the machine gunner's legs were broken. If there was no response, as a frontline combatant, he would be dead unjustly, so the 4 surviving people in the car immediately opened the door and rushed out. I picked up the FAMA's assault rifle in my hand without taking aim. Just aim roughly in the direction where the enemy is likely to be and start blind firing, thinking of a little suppression effect to buy yourself time to find the bunker next. The location where we were attacked happened to be in a small village with only more than 30 households, so fortunately there were some earthen walls of local villagers around for cover. I spotted the side closest to me and jumped forward quickly. At the same time, I also saw that the leading armored vehicle had already been penetrated by the rocket in the engine compartment and was completely lying down. The second armored vehicle still had the ability to maneuver. When it started to move, it seemed that it wanted to use its high mobility to get back to the opponent's side and hit the opponent. Caught off guard. But as soon as it drove around the wreckage of the car in front and drove out within 30 meters, a smoke column, wrapped with countless dust and gravel, exploded from under its right wheel, followed by a deafening explosion and sweeping the shock wave is coming. The sound of the explosion was so loud that my eardrums hurt even though I was wearing a headset, and the airwaves that followed hit me and knocked me to the ground on the spot. A strong sense of nausea and dizziness came from the shock to my internal organs, which also knocked me out of my skin. In this case, it was obvious that the second armored vehicle was attacked by an IED, improvised explosive device. The attack was caused by the use of a 100-kilogram aerial bomb from World War II by local extremist forces. The power of this bomb blew up more than half of the entire front of the second armored vehicle, and the vehicle also flipped upside down on the side of the road. Even if the people inside were not dead, they would faint from the shock of the explosion at a distance. I later learned that the people in this car ended up being wiped out because the Panhard VBL armored vehicle did not have similar weapons. A V like a mine-resistant patrol car. The chassis was designed with lightning protection and shock absorption functions, so the explosion of the IED transmitted the energy firmly to the car body and even the people in the car. All 6 people were shocked and bled to death on the spot. Although my body felt very uncomfortable at the moment, lying there was no different than waiting for death, so I gritted my teeth and rolled over, got up, and continued to shoot blindly. I followed the other survivors and got into a hole after crossing the earth wall. Among the villagers' houses. The owner of this room was so frightened that he huddled in the corner and shivered, not daring to move. "Damn, this is my last mission," one of my black comrades, Locken, spat. "Stop talking this nonsense. Now look how many more of us there are. Request support immediately and let the nearest aviation force blow up these bastards." Adrian, the commander of this operation, said. These guys look like newbies. If we had detonated the IED after the convoy was driving directly above it, I'm afraid we would have been killed by at least half as many people. I said. Locken is the communicator responsible for contacting the aviation force. Following Adrian's order, he began to request support from nearby friendly bases, but the reply he got was very annoying. The reply was that there were currently no fighter planes that could take off, no helicopters, and no fixed-wing aircraft. There were not even ground troops that could be mobilized. The final order or suggestion given to us was to let us break out to an agreed-upon location on our own, where there would be a response force. In this situation, whether you live or die depends entirely on yourself. We all stuck our guns out of the window and took advantage of the sights to start firing accurately at the extremist armed forces outside that were outflanking us. I put the aiming point in the holographic sight on the automatic rifle rail on the chest or head of the militants and fired accurately one round at a time. After the magazine was empty, I silently counted at least 5 militants shot to death by me. 2 of them were shot in the head and died. However, in this kind of battle, a huge shortcoming of the FAMA's automatic rifle was also exposed, which is that the shooting baseline is too high, and it becomes even higher after the sight is installed. If you want to shoot accurately at the target outside the window, you have to expose most of your head, which undoubtedly increases your chance of being shot. Fortunately, I relied on the corner of the window and shot out diagonally. This flaw is in this: it is not obvious in the state. But it was different for some of the comrades who were facing the window. 3 of them were hit in the head or face by stray bullets from the opponent's large-scale suppressive fire because the exposed area was too large, causing 1 death and 2 injuries. But it was different for some of the comrades who were facing the window. 3 of them were hit in the head or face by stray bullets from the opponent's large-scale suppressive fire because the exposed area was too large, causing 1 death and 2 injuries. 1 of them was seriously injured. The dead man was hit in the face by a 12.7 by 109 mm Soviet-made large-caliber machine gun bullet. The kinetic energy of this bullet was as high as tens of thousands of joules. The result of a direct hit on the face was that the entire head was injured. Exploded. The helmet on his head also flew off. After landing, I could even see that the back part of the helmet had disappeared under the impact of the bullet, leaving a jagged gap. There was also a fragment of a skull inside. Having said that, the militants have already driven over a large number of pickup trucks equipped with Soviet-made DSHK 12.7 mm large-caliber machine guns. The bullets fired by this machine gun just blew the heads of my comrades beside me. This kind of machine gun was born in World War II. It is heavy and old, has low accuracy but very strong firepower. Especially when firing intensively, it has a strong ability to suppress soft targets like light infantry like us. The only way we can counterattack them is to take advantage of them and use precise shooting to kill the opponent's machine gun shooter standing on the back of the pickup truck. Or rely on 2 comrades equipped with gun-mounted grenade launchers to launch 40 mm high-explosive grenades to directly destroy the entire car. Fortunately, Mali, as a West African country, has poor climate conditions. The private houses here are characterized by small windows and thick walls, which are used to resist the sun's rays and can prevent heatstroke and cool down in summer. The thick walls are generally made of local soil, river sand, and gravel. It has extremely high toughness when dried in the sun after being built, and its defense against bullets is also very strong. Even a 12.7 mm large-caliber machine gun bullet can only make bullet holes in it, but it cannot penetrate it. As for the AKM-type automatic rifles, SVD-type sniper rifles and other firearms used by other dismounted militants that fire medium-caliber intermediate-power bullets and medium-caliber full-power bullets. They are even more helpless against such a wall. This makes us safe behind the wall for now. I thought to myself that the only thing that could threaten this kind of wall was the rocket launcher in the opponent's hand, so I said to Adrian, "We have to kill the bazooka man first. This wall can stop bullets but not rockets." But just as he finished speaking, before Adrian could reply, something more threatening than the rocket launcher appeared. Those are 4 vehicles equipped with Zu-23-2 double-barreled 23mm anti-aircraft guns. This kind of anti-aircraft gun is no longer able to deal with today's aircraft due to its performance, but it still has great existence value, that is, it can hit ground targets with flat fire. All these vehicles were parked sideways only about 200 meters away from the house. Then, under the control of the militants, they aimed the anti-aircraft guns at the house where we were and immediately launched a volley of fire. At that moment, countless 23mm artillery shells flying at a muzzle velocity of 750 meters per second hit the wall. The wall could block 12.7mm machine gun bullets, but it could not block 23mm anti-aircraft artillery shells. After the shells penetrated the wall, they slaughtered us hiding behind without mercy. Excluding the 2 people who were killed in the 4th armored vehicle I was in, and the 6 people who were lost in the 2nd armored vehicle that was blown over. Then excluding the 3 people who were killed in the 1st and 3rd armored vehicles, the armed patrol of 24 people arrived here, with a total combat loss of 2 + 9 + 3 is equal to 13 people, and there were still 11 people who rushed into the house. And among these 11 people, another one was shot in the head by a machine gun just now, so there are only 10 people left. The 10 of us, under the wild sweep of 4 double-barreled guns and 8 cannons, for more people were killed when we came up. Only 6 people were able to move. Except for these 4 people. There was also the owner of the house huddled in the corner. He was a middle-aged man who looked a little malnourished. Our arrival brought him a fatal disaster. Every time I think about this in the future, I feel a little self-blame. Having said that, the 23mm anti-aircraft artillery shells hitting the body are no joke. There are absolutely no bullet holes. As long as it is a direct hit, it will be beaten into a pile of minced meat on the spot. NATO Level 3 standard body armor with hard inserts inserted is as fragile as tissue paper under such a blow, and the 5 people who were hit basically had this result. The kinetic energy released after the shell hit their bodies easily knocked them out. The body is torn apart. At that moment, a large amount of blood was sprinkled all over the room and walls. The person who was hit in the abdomen was beaten to death, and his broken internal organs were shed all over the floor. The air is filled with a strange smell of burning propellant mixed with the smell of blood when bullets are fired. Fortunately, my years of experience in fighting abroad have allowed me to adapt to such scenes and smells. I and others all lay on the ground in a crawling position to reduce the probability of being hit by shells passing through the wall as much as possible. After a burst of crazy shooting, the opponent brought out the most powerful, big killer, in this battle. A US-made M40 106mm recoilless gun, using high explosive shells and no less than 20 rocket launchers, began to bombard the house where we were. The wall that had been beaten into a honeycomb was greatly reduced in strength compared to before. Now if we are directly hit by a 106 mm high explosive bomb, if we continue to stay here, even if we will not be killed, we will be buried alive because of the collapse of the house. In addition, the arrival of anti-aircraft gun pickup trucks and recoilless gun pickup trucks shows that this group of militants still has a large number of reinforcements on the way. Even in a head-to-head battle, we defeated soldiers have no chance of winning, and may even be defeated. Captured prisoners. Being held captive by them would probably result in a life worse than death. So there is only one way before us, and that is to break out of the encirclement, as the advice from the station said. The only favorable condition for us now is that this ambush battle took place at dusk in the afternoon. After this battle, night is about to fall, and each of us carries a second-generation individual soldier binocular night vision device. Compared with militants who do not have night vision equipment and can only rely on naked eyes to identify targets, we have obvious advantages in perception capabilities, which will be our biggest reliance on breaking out. By taking advantage of the cold and fighting back with automatic rifles and grenade launchers from the window, we finally persisted until the dark night fell completely. We flipped the night vision device that had been turned upside down on the helmet downwards and buckled it upright between the eyes. Superior. Then the entire field of vision turned into a dark green, which severely weakened the ability to recognize colors, but greatly enhanced the ability to recognize the outlines of things, in the darkness of the naked eye. Through it, I could clearly see the silhouette of the militants on the opposite side. As a result, the surviving 6 people were temporarily organized into 2 combat groups under Adrian's assignment, each consisting of 3 people. 2 grenadiers with 40 mm gun-mounted grenade launchers and 1 machine gunner equipped with an FNMAG 7.62 mm general-purpose machine gun in light form are the fire support team. Their task is to provide rear cover, while Adrian and I, the 3 Lockens, formed an assault team. After a while, they rushed out and specifically attacked the opponent's vehicle-mounted weapons. After destroying these targets that posed the greatest threat to us, they immediately greased the soles of their feet. After the task is determined, it can be implemented immediately without further delay. According to the prior plan, the fire support team temporarily used the earthen wall outside the house as a bunker to contain the opponent's firepower and create favorable conditions for our operations. And we took advantage of the visual perception brought by the night vision goggles to kill at least a dozen militants along the way, and then rushed to the opposite side of the main road that ran through the village and was less than 5 meters wide. The convoy was on this road just now. Attacked. Then there was another round of fighting, and we got close to the opponent's 5 armed pickup trucks. Through precise shooting, we first killed the drivers and weapons operators on the 5 vehicles, and then I put the gun behind my back. I lowered my body and ran for 2 quick steps, then jumped into the back of one of the pickup trucks. The 2 pickup trucks were the ones equipped with recoilless rifles. I originally thought that all the militants in the truck were dead. Yes, but my feet felt tight after I came up. Someone grabbed my ankle and pulled me to the ground. Then a dark figure rushed up and pressed on me. At the same time, it grabbed my neck with both hands and tried to strangle me to death. At the same time, a few drops of warm, viscous liquid dripped from his body. The liquid was none other than blood. It turned out that the black figure was the militant who had just operated the recoilless rifle. He didn't die after I shot him in the chest with a FAMA's automatic rifle. He only went on a rampage and injured others after I got in the car. It is said that the NATO standard 5.56 by 45 mm rifle bullet has a weak stopping effect unless it hits the head. Even if it hits the chest, abdomen and other torso areas, it will take 4 to 5 consecutive hits to make a person quickly lose his attack power and be killed in a short period of time. I just shot him once, which allowed him to survive again. Get up and attack me. In the past, most of the actual combat I participated in was as a sniper. I rarely encountered this kind of thing when using a sniper rifle that fired medium-caliber full-power rifle bullets. Unexpectedly, this time I finally encountered such a situation after finally making a guest appearance as an assaulter using a small-caliber automatic rifle and fighting with a real gun. But now is not the time to think about this. It was quite uncomfortable for me to have his neck strangled by him, and it was a little difficult to breathe. But it didn't deteriorate to the point where I couldn't bear it. This is because, fortunately, the heavy-duty body armor of the Domestic Guardian series I purchased at my own expense has a neck protection design. Although this hard part may usually hurt to the chin. But it can save lives at critical moments, like now. The first time he pinched my neck guard, it was a hard material that could withstand bullets. It was not easy to pinch it with your hands. This took him a long time, but he didn't hit me. How to give? After discovering this problem, this guy immediately let go of his hand and tried to pinch me upwards. He wanted to reach over the neck protector and pinch my upper neck. But how could I give him this opportunity? I took this opportunity to reach out and pull it out from my waist. Multifunctional military knife. The blade of the knife stabbed toward his jaw from bottom to top, and then the knife stabbed in firmly. The entire blade of more than 20 centimeters sank into his jaw. After penetrating the chin, it stabbed into the inside of the skull. Then I fiercely a twist of the knife handle. The blade rotated together, expanding the wound from a relatively small strip to a large irregular hole. A stream of blood, accompanied by the brain contents, flowed from the inside along the blade, then to the handle, and finally to my hand. This man's body lost strength and pressed down on me, and I was sure that he was definitely dead this time. Pushing his body away, I rubbed the saber randomly on his tattered clothes, then retracted the scabbard, and then opened the breech. Then lift a 106 mm high-explosive grenade from the ground, use both arms to send it into the barrel, then close the breech, hold the barrel with your right hand to control the muzzle pointing, and grab the handle with your left hand to prepare for firing. With the help of night vision goggles, his eyes aimed through the rusty primitive mechanical ruler on the gun, and first used 4 shells to destroy the 4 anti-aircraft gun pickup trucks. Then I fired all the remaining 20 or so shells at the locations where the militants were most concentrated. While I was blowing them up and knocking me off my feet, I shouted in the headset. "Where are you all? I'm on a recoilless gun truck, come here quickly. Let's drive this car." At this time, Adrian and Lacan over there, with the help of the fire support team, disrupted the ranks of the militants by repeatedly inserting themselves in, so that they began to lose track of how many of us there were. They even misjudged that our reinforcements had arrived, but they responded immediately after receiving my call, and then called 3 people from the fire support team to move closer to me. Not much time. All 6 people gathered around the pickup truck. The machine gunner in the fire support team was responsible for driving. The remaining 5 people, except for 1 person on the co-pilot, all sat on the truck body and pointed their guns to the rear and side. Shooting covers vehicle preparations for retreat. The car had never been turned off, so we put the car in gear and stepped on the accelerator. We sped off and started running towards the south along the way we came. Realizing that the driver was not one of their own, the militants started shooting at the car, but their shooting skills were really poor, not to mention it was still dark. So after fighting for a long time, except for the intensive sound of gunfire, which made people instinctively tighten their necks, no one among us was hit. We fired back, and after killing several more militants, the sound of gunfire gradually faded away. It wasn't until I couldn't hear anything anymore that I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that I must have broken out of the ambush. To be continued. 2. Returning home in tatters. Don't be happy too early, can describe what we will encounter in a few seconds. Because the car ran into the IED again not far after driving out. It is estimated that the militants who saw our breakout notified other accomplices nearby and used the explosives that had been buried here or temporarily buried here to attack. Got us. The bet was that our car would go down this road, and if so, they were right. Fortunately, there was still darkness this time, which allowed the militants who detonated the IED to misjudge the distance and detonated in advance. But even so, the shock wave hitting the front of the car shattered the windshield, and the glass fragments shattered the driver's face. His face was scratched and covered in blood, and one eye was also injured. The left and right tires of the front wheel were also hit by fragments from the explosion and leaked. The front wheels were all punctured. Naturally, the car could not continue to drive. The 6 of us were forced to get out of the car and start walking. Thinking about it, if the IED had a higher yield, or if it had been detonated a little later, all of us in the car would have been bombed with no bones left. When I thought about this afterwards, I felt lucky and scared at the same time. The subsequent run lasted more than 30 kilometers. During the process, the 6 of them evaded multiple pursuits by armed men until almost midnight before arriving at another village adjacent to the previous village. After confirming that there was no threat to the safety of the village, we each found a place to sit down and catch our breath. After resting for more than an hour, I remembered that my lips were almost dry and cracked, so I took out the unscrew the lid of the military kettle and prepared to drink water. Just as we took out the kettle and took a sip, a dark shadow suddenly flashed across the corner of a common local house not far from us. After half a day and most of the night, we were ambushed and hunted. At this moment, now, our mental state was extremely tense. As soon as we saw a black shadow flash by, we immediately raised our guns and prepared for battle. We communicated with tactical gestures and divided our troops into 2 groups to surround them to see who this black shadow was. I thought to myself that it was better that this was a villager and not a militant. Otherwise, if we were surrounded again, we would basically have to explain here, and I had already bypassed it. At this moment, the black figure was less than 3 meters away from me, and his back was turned to me. He was holding the corner of the wall and looking towards where we were sitting. It seemed that this guy didn't even notice that we were surrounding him. Action. At the same time, he seemed to be thinking about something, probably muttering about how we disappeared in the blink of an eye. But what this guy thinks is not my concern. The prey is already in front of me, so I have no reason not to take action, just to kill innocent people in vain. In order to know that I might be able to get some valuable information, I didn't do it privately when I made the move. Instead, I lowered my waist, rushed over with a lunge, clasped the opponent's knees with both hands, and lifted them up fiercely. At the same time, press the opponent's lower back with your shoulders. The other party was not prepared at all, and was pulled to the ground on the spot by my actions. The moment the person lay down, I took another step forward and sat on the other person's body, or in other words, sat on his waist. As long as this action is completed. As long as the other person is not the Hulk, he will basically not be able to use his huge strength. However, this is not over yet. He sits up and arches his back, and violently presses the back of the person's head with both hands, causing his face to hit the ground. And when he bounced up, he used his left arm to pass through the opponent's neck. Use your forearm to strangle its neck severely, and at the same time grab the left wrist with your right hand to make the force more efficient. This is a standard set of capture prisoner tactical actions when touching a sentry post. It is mainly used for actions such as touching a sentry post and quickly capturing enemy prisoners. In our country, many combat troops have to practice skills, but the Foreign Legion does not have this. The reason why I learned it from the cousin of a friend, not the friend who served together, before I joined the Foreign Legion. This friend's cousin is a retired veteran of the Marine Corps. At that time, it was common for me to fight on the street. I was very interested in this kind of thing, so after having a drink, I learned a lot. Later, I took many a friend once served as my guinea pig. When I joined the Foreign Legion, I not only never forgot this set of techniques, but I also became very familiar with them because of our frequent contact with them. Closer to home, after this set of capturing actions, the person was basically trapped, but I felt something was wrong after I got started. Because after touching this person's body shape, I suddenly realized that this must be a woman. At this time, Adrian also came around. Seeing me riding the black shadow under me, he reached out and turned him over with me. Through the green picture of the night vision device and after some careful identification, I confirmed that this was indeed a woman, and she was still a young woman. She had long hair and thick eyebrows and big eyes. She looked like a Central Asian, which was exactly like the most common West African black people here. No, the same. This is not an unusual thing. After all, there are many non-native settlers in Mali. I would not be surprised if this was a white man. Afterwards, he was searched again, and after confirming that there were no weapons, he was briefly interrogated. This woman's nose was broken because I pressed the back of her head and hit the ground. She wiped the nosebleed and timidly spoke in half-baked French. The general meaning was that she got up to take a break and saw her on the way back. Us. Then I was ready to hide and get a better look. Unexpectedly, we found him and pinned him down here. I thought that if that was the case, then I would just let them go back, with a few words of instruction not to reveal our whereabouts. The main reason for being so reassured is that the local extremist armed groups often prey on the people, so the local civilians hate them very much. If they come to ask, the civilians will not tell them even if they know. The woman promised not to expose our whereabouts. I thought this little episode would be over when I came here. What I didn't expect was that this incident would become a key trigger that changed the trajectory of my life. The trigger was that Adrian, as the commander, suddenly showed his bestiality. While cursing some slang and swear words in French, he reached out and grabbed the back of the woman's neck, then threw her to the ground, then held her down tightly, turned around and said to us, "If you guys want it too, then just wait in line. If someone comes out, drive him away with a gun, or kill him if that doesn't work. I won't be long." After saying that, he started to unbutton his belt, and the woman immediately screamed at the top of her lungs and struggled desperately. But Adrian was a standard Caucasian man, over 1.9 meters tall and weighing over 120 kilograms. An ordinary woman would not be able to resist his bear-like strength, so the struggle was basically pointless. It is said that for civilians, a defeated soldier is the most terrifying thing, because the defeated soldier will be angry after the defeat. If he encounters an unarmed civilian at this time, the latter will most easily become the target of the defeated soldier's vent. The vent may be anger or animalistic desires. Being chased for more than 30 kilometers and still being in the mood to do such a thing like Adrian is a typical example of such a defeated soldier. There are countless similar situations in the thousands of years of human war history. I looked at everything in front of me, watching Adrian take his dick out of his crotch and lift the woman's clothes. A feeling of disdain came into my heart, and I immediately stepped forward to grab Adrian's shoulders and said, "She is just a civilian. Won't your conscience be condemned if you do this? Humph, what's wrong with you? Are you possessed by the Holy Mother or overflowing with love? She's not your wife. Not your older sister or younger sister, nor your mother. Does this have anything to do with you?" Adrian said, "We can be cruel, but we cannot be beasts without a moral bottom line." I said, "Damn it, it's not your Asian monkey's turn to teach me a lesson here. Believe it or not, I will kill you now." Adrian's interest was ruined by me. He stood up from the ground angrily and pulled up his pants. Then he stared at me and said, "For this kind of discriminatory attack language. I have long been accustomed to it during my years in the Foreign Legion, but my way of coping is not to swallow my anger, but to beat the other person until they see me and never dare to say anything again. But this is not the time for fighting." Only then did I suppress my anger at being insulted by him and did not take action. Having said that, the woman's hoarse shouting just now woke up her family, and a man wearing single clothes and bare feet ran out of the house and came to them. There was even a child beside him. Needless to say, this man was the woman's husband, and the child was naturally their child. However, this man was a West African black man, who looked as black as a piece of coal, and not to mention as skinny as a stick. When the woman saw her husband coming, she hurriedly hid behind him. This man spoke a lot of local dialect and talked to us with gestures and gestures. I have always been half understanding this dialect. I can only understand a general meaning, that is, begging for mercy. But this did not awaken Adrian's sympathy. He reached out and pulled out the M9 9mm pistol he used as a self-defense weapon from the holster. At the same time, he also took out a silencer and screwed it on the muzzle of the gun. Then he aimed at the man's leg and fired a shot. After the gun with the silencer sounded pop, the man fell to the ground, and then covered his shot in pain. Dan Chu curled up on the ground. When the child saw his father lying on the ground like this, he was immediately frightened and cried loudly. Adrian cursed a few more times, rushed over and grabbed the child's legs, saying, "Let's see if I don't kill this little bastard first." I realized at this moment that this guy was a beast, and it was absolutely impossible not to stop him. Thinking of this, I didn't think about it anymore, so I flew up and kicked him before he could grab the child's legs. "Lie down on your shoulders." Adrian, who staggered after kicking him and almost fell to the ground, was completely angered by my kick. He cursed again, "You damn Asian monkey." He cursed and came towards me with open arms, and I was ready to fight with him. But before we hit each other, there were 4 people nearby who couldn't watch the fun. After all the trouble, they all swarmed up, first separated us, and then 2 people pulled one to pull us apart. One of the 2 people who held me back was Locken, a black man. He leaned into my ear and whispered to me. Adrian was a rapist before he came to the Corps. You can't argue with him. I couldn't answer anything at the moment, so I just nodded. I thought that rapists could become grassroots commanders in the Foreign Legion. This place is really a scum shelter that accepts any trash as long as they have good combat skills. Although I was not a good person before, such dirty behavior. I absolutely can't do it. After the 4 people fought hard, the 2 of us did not fight in the end, but Adrian pointed at me and continued to curse, "I'll settle the score with you later. I'll make you kneel down and beg for mercy." And I just replied coldly, "Stay with me to the end." The next thing was that I left a little personal medicine for the man who was injured by Adrian's pistol, which is distributed to everyone in the Foreign Legion fighting abroad. This is a drug that has hemostatic and anti-inflammatory properties and is specially used to treat gunshot wounds, splinter wounds, and other war wounds. There's only so much I can do. Then there was a forced march through the night. This incident made the relationship between Adrian and I very tense. The 6 of us didn't say a word of nonsense between us. We just hurried on until dawn, and finally reached the nearest French military station. We also met with the garrison, who was ordered to meet us here. After taking a short rest in the garrison, they sent a car to take us back to the Foreign Corps camp where we were. How to write mission reports, casualty reports. Needless to say, things like tactical summary. After everything was completed, I thought that everything would return to normal after eating and sleeping. But those comrades who died in this ambush, to be honest, different from the feelings of comrades behind the scenes that are often shown in cultural works, although I also call them comrades in arms, I don't feel too sad. This does not mean that I am so cold-blooded, but it is caused by the environment of the Foreign Legion. Because the Foreign Legion is the main force of the French Army's foreign intervention, it often undertakes the most dangerous tasks with the worst conditions. It is precisely for this reason that the casualty rate of the Foreign Legion is particularly high, and those who die must have new people will fill in. Therefore, the the personnel mobility here is much greater than that of other armies. At the same time, the sources of soldiers in the Foreign Legion are very complex. In order to prevent some of the big bad guys who may have serious criminal records from getting together to form gangs and constitute unstable factors that threaten the operation of the entire corps, the Foreign Legion will regularly transfer personnel within the same unit internally, such as me. The 2nd Parachute Regiment basically rotates once a month. This, coupled with the constant addition of newcomers, results in the fact that there are basically no comrades with deep feelings around, and it is more of a temporary combination. For example, Adrian is like this to me. I had only carried out 2 missions with him before this, and his role as our field commander this time was completely temporary. Such an arrangement is detrimental to the organization of a combat unit. Because possessive feelings are one of the major catalysts for combat effectiveness, but for the sake of stability, they don't care about it. After all, the Foreign Legion is more of a high-level cannon fodder for the French army. Such a temporary comrade. I have been killed many times in my 9 years of service. Their names will not appear in the news or even on the official list of French army losses. Only their families will receive a pension and a death notice. Book. As well as some relics that were used in the service, so I have long been used to it, or I am numb. Having said that, after everything seemed to be back to normal, at noon on the 4th day after an ambush occurred, I came to the station canteen to prepare for lunch. I had just grabbed a portion of mashed potatoes, a bowl of Russell soup, a piece of cheap foie gras, 2 fried chicken legs and a small bowl of rice specially prepared for Asian soldiers on a metal tray. When I sat down to eat, a big hand suddenly appeared in front of me. I hooked my fingers on the edge of the stainless steel plate and gave it a strong force, throwing my dinner plate and the lunch inside all onto the pillar next to me. There were 2 collision sounds as the stainless steel plate hit the pillar and landed on the ground. The originally noisy canteen suddenly became much quieter. Many people eating around me turned their attention here. I was still holding a spoon for soup in my hand. I didn't even need to raise my head to know who did this. Who must be Adrian? This guy really came to take revenge. I told you, what happened last time can't be finished. Today I'm going to pinch out the intestines of you, an Asian monkey. I stood up angrily, threw the spoon aside, and yelled back, Let me see whose crotch zipper is unzipped. Exposed you? If you don't win me over today, then you will be my fucking child. Serving in the Foreign Legion, it's not enough to know how to curse. After training here, I have basically learned to accept everyone who comes, whether with words or with hands. Realm. When people around us saw that we were about to fight, their first reaction was not to eat, and they worked together to move all the tables and chairs around to make room for us. These people I wish someone would fight so I could watch the fun. There are even more fights in the Foreign Legion. As the saying goes, as long as no one is killed, basically no one will care. My height is 1.88 meters and my weight is 102 kilograms, which is 1.9 meters more than Adrian. At 120 kilograms, I am about 2 fingers shorter, and my stature is half a circle smaller. However, this did not have any adverse effect on my morale, because when I was an unemployed vagrant and in the recruit company of the Corps, There are also many who beat opponents who are bigger than him until they kneel down and beg for mercy. At this time, almost no one was eating in the cafeteria. We were surrounded by 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside. Then all kinds of whistles and shouts were heard all over the place, such as, "Beat him to death," "Kick his ass," "Whist his head off." I heard words like this all the time, and I didn't know who they were talking about. Come on. After we both stood in the empty space, I squinted my eyes and said to Adrian in a provocative tone. Adrian didn't say anything anymore, and took action first. He waved his fist as big as a leather hammer and aimed it at my face. The fist flashed close to the tip of my nose. Then I tightened the soles of my feet, raised my legs and kicked him hard in the abdomen with my back heels. Adrian was unable to dodge and was kicked by me. It stands to reason that it would have been a kick to him from the opponents I had beaten before. Even if he didn't lose the ability to resist, he would have to be kicked to the ground, but Adrian was really strong. His reaction was just to take 2 steps back under the force, and then he stood firm again without showing any expression on his face. What an expression of pain. This pounced again. Then the 2 of us started to fight with our fists. The principle of this kind of fighting is to avoid or prevent the opponent's heavy blows while trying to hit the opponent hard at the same time. But it is easy to say, but not so easy to do. Adrian and I punched each other dozens of times and each suffered injuries. He made 2 cuts on the corner of my mouth and broke my nose, while I punched his lip open and broke the bridge of his nose. Overall, he suffered the loss. The reason is that although this guy is strong, his steps are not flexible enough. I can dodge most of his heavy blows by moving my body, but he usually can't dodge my heavy blows. After a solid fist, his face was beaten into the shape of a pig's head. Adrian came here because I was scared. After that, he started to target my vital points, such as my crotch, temples, throat, etc. I saw that this guy wanted to risk his life. If your heart says you will risk your life, then I am not afraid of you. After making up his mind, his energy and blood surged, and he increased his strength by 3 points, and at the same time, he began to launch fierce attacks on his vital points. In the end, I used my hands to protect my head and my feet to rush forward, holding my fist and getting into Adrian's inner perimeter. What is the inner perimeter? This is a special term for fighting, which refers to the range inside a person's arms and into this range. The opponent cannot use his arms to effectively block, but we can attack the opponent's important parts such as the center line of the torso. Inner circle decisive battle is also one of the common scenarios in high-level fighting competitions that ultimately determines the outcome. And the purpose of my getting in. Of course, that was to deal with him. First, stretch out the hands that were protecting your head to grab his collar, and then yank him down, pulling his body downwards, and at the same time bending his right leg into a knee-forward position. Forward and lift it up sharply. Use the hardest part of your knee to hit his upper abdomen hard. This blow was very effective. Even though Adrian was very strong, his eyes almost popped out after being hit by my knee. I seized this opportunity. Aiming at his head that was bent down slightly due to pain, he sent another left swing punch and hit him on the chin with the edge of the fist. This time he was completely knocked down. Adrian's body was. I swung my left fist in the direction of force and fell sideways. Then he lay on the ground unconscious. When someone checked his injury, they found that the right side of his jaw had been dislocated by me, and he couldn't close his mouth until it was reset. There was a burst of cheers from the crowd watching around. Anyway, no matter who of us beats whom down, they will do this. Adrian was defeated by me. In my opinion, to put it bluntly, this guy still lacks actual combat experience. I guess he has picked up weak persimmons before. This time I met a slightly tougher opponent, and I couldn't handle it. For this canteen one-on-one fight, apparently both of us only received verbal warnings. After all, similar things are commonplace in the Foreign Legion. But then I learned the consequences that ended my military service. An expulsion notice. Needless to say, the specific reason for expulsion is just a short paragraph of official words. In the lower right corner of the notice, there is also the stamp of the Foreign Legion headquarters. To show effectiveness. One of the most irritating sentences is, cannot obey management, has an aggressive personality, and is a potential dangerous factor for the Corps. At the same time, I was deprived of the Outstanding Service Medal that should have belonged to me. I even confiscated all the 120,000 euros in retirement fees that I would have received if I could retire on time. This is equivalent to negating all my efforts in the Foreign Legion in the past 9 years in a few words, plus the largest financial income. I was so angry that I had no other choice but to use the little money I had on hand to buy a plane ticket and prepare to take a flight back to my country. As a person without military status, it was impossible for me to continue to stay here. Locken, as one of the few warm-hearted people in the regiment, also helped me inquire about it. Before I left, he said to me, "Do you know why you were expelled and your retirement pay was confiscated?" Could it be related to Adrian? I said with a cold snort as I packed my bags without raising my head. Yes, it's not only related to him, it should be said to be directly related. I heard that he called his uncle and that's why he fired you. Locken said. Ha! Just call his uncle and fire me? Who is his uncle? President of France? After I heard what he said, I looked at him with a disdainful expression and said, I am definitely not the President of France, but I am the Minister of Gendarmerie of the Corps. He has the direct right to decide whether a soldier should stay or go. If he wants to compile some crimes for you to be expelled, it is as simple as taking a breather. Locken said. Hey, I can't tell this guy has official relatives. No wonder this kind of scum has been able to run rampant for so long. I said. This guy has been in the infantry regiment and the engineer regiment. He has always been arrogant and domineering, and he has never suffered a loss. This time he was beaten by you, which is the first time he has suffered a setback. But the price you paid is indeed too high, your life these years. It's like playing in vain. Locken said. That doesn't matter. His uncle is the Minister of Gendarmerie or the President of France. He has nothing to do with me. I have been fired, so what else is there to say? The only thing I have to do now is to catch the plane. Then return home. I said. Then what are your plans after returning to China? Locken said. let's go back and talk about it first. After all, being expelled is not part of my plan. No matter what, Lachlan, thank you for telling me this, I said. At the same time, he put his packed backpack on his back and stretched out his hand. Lachlan immediately stretched out his hand to shake my hand, then smashed each other up and down with his fists, and finally touched each other, performing the etiquette of the regiment. He punched me on the chest and said, I wish you good luck. If you do well in China, I might go back and join you. Then I will definitely let you have a Chinese friend you can rely on in the future, I said with a smile. Then he sent me to the airport, and he saw me off alone. He didn't leave until I got on the plane with my boarding pass. I recalled my past relationship with Lachlan, and I didn't say that we were good friends. And he did this to me. Maybe I did something he wanted to do but didn't dare, like I beat up Adrian. There is no need to detail the process of how to transfer after getting on the plane and finally arrive home after a total flight time of more than 10 hours. As far as my personal situation is concerned, I can really say that I have nothing at this moment. The only card I have on my body has a deposit of less than 1,500 euros. Others who have worked abroad for many years and come home look like they are returning home in glory. But now I am returning home in tatters. There is a feeling of having no face to face Jiangdong's elders. Basically, 10% of the money I earned in the Foreign Legion over the years was reserved for my personal daily expenses, the remaining 50% was sent back home, and 40% was given to my girlfriend in China. I go home once a year to see her after visiting my parents. She often asks me when I will come back. I always say, soon, but this time I came back and stayed away. I don't know that she knows the news. Will you be surprised later? I was walking in the airport passage thinking this. I was listening to a song playing on the phone of someone next to me. It was an old song, Fei Xiang's Clouds of My Hometown, in which it was sung. I was once full of pride, but I came back with an empty bag. As the saying goes, the biggest fear in listening to music is to be distracted.